Hey YouTube, how's it going? Smokes A Rollin, fellow trucker and YouTuber. He tagged me in a music tag, and I've been putting off doing this because there's just so much information I want to put out there. So I'm going to try to keep this somewhat short. And Steve Berger kind of, he just did his tag, and it's like, you know what, I need to do mine. So without further ado, okay, now what we were supposed to do is we were supposed to list our favorite kind of music, favorite band, bassist, drummer, guitarist, vocalist, and one thing no one knows about you in the music world. So, as you guys can see, I'm a metalhead. That's my thing. Metal, right? I am pretty open-minded with most music, but metal is where my heart is, okay? Some of my favorite bands, you know, that's the thing with favorites. You know, I normally don't like doing lists of favorites because there's just so many. You know, I have a very large music collection, and it's hard to pinpoint just certain things. So whenever, you know, basically what I did is after watching Steve's video, I did this all at once, you know, and I'm sure that tomorrow after I upload the video, I'll be like, you know, I should have mentioned that, I should have mentioned this, but this is the basics of it. So as far as favorite bands go, now I'm going to do a disclaimer here. Most of the people that are doing these music tags are going to list the favorites. Iron Maiden, Metallica, Black Sabbath, you know, all the classics like Neil Peart and, you know, Russ, and, you know, like anybody that you would see in Guitar World magazine, you know, Van Halen, all that stuff. And while I do appreciate all those things, I wanted to put more of a modern, not modern, but more of an underground approach. Maybe you can learn about new groups through what I tell you here. And and the way I'm influenced musically is different. You know, it's like, yes, Eddie Van Halen's a great guitar player, but did he influence me? No. So there's a lot of situations like that. So I'll go over my list, and we'll try to keep it focused, but it's a big list, okay? So favorite band is obviously Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden can do no wrong. Iron Maiden's one of those bands that if I only had one band to listen to on a deserted island, it would be them. A close second would be Metallica. And Iron Maiden and Metallica are the core of my extreme music listening. Yes, I like Sabbath and Ozzy and all the usual favorites. Anything that you would hear on the classic rock stations, I like those bands, but those pretty much are the first two. Some unknown bands, though, that you may not know about: Flotsam and Jetsam. Flotsam and Jetsam is the perfect blend of Metallica and Iron Maiden with a little bit of speed. They're a perfect combination of speed and thrash metal, and they just, if you don't know, Jason Newsted, who was in Metallica, came from Flotsam and Jetsam. In the more extreme world, Death is one of my all-time favorite bands. They were the grandfathers of the death metal movement, and I actually got to hang out with those guys, and one of my good friends actually was able to join Death. And I'll get more into that later. And then Stryper. That's one you probably didn't expect. Stryper was responsible for me getting back into metal when I kind of left it for a minute. I like the fact that they weren't your typical metal band talking about the typical things. And I think that they're highly, highly underrated. A lot of it's probably because of their Christian, you know, moniker, but, and then, you know, some honorable mentions is Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, Slayer, you know, Death Angel, Anthrax, you know, that kind of thing. So, Exodus. I got to stop. I got to go to the next thing, or else I'm going to list like 20 more bands. Okay, bassist. Okay, this one was fairly easy. And again, I'll probably, like, tomorrow while driving, I'll be like, oh man, I should have mentioned this and this. But here's the ones that I've listed. Steve Harris, of course. Iron Maiden, you know. Jason Newsted. Jason Newsted is severely underrated. I think he got a bad rap because he had some big shoes to fill with Cliff Burton. Don't get me wrong, Cliff Burton's brilliant. I'm not saying Newsted's better than Cliff Burton, but Cliff Burton always gets the props, so I'm giving props to Jason Newsted. However, not for his work in Metallica. His best work, in my opinion, was when he was in Flotsam and Jetsam. Geezer Butler. Nobody plays bass like he does. And since Black Sabbath is the foundation of heavy metal, Geezer Butler is the foundation for bass playing in a heavy metal band. Dee Dee Verney from Overkill. You can hear every single note he plays, and he is a prominent aspect of Overkill. And he's like, him and the singer are the last of the remaining original members of that band. Now, one that you probably don't know about is Steve DiGiorgio. He was in a band called, an underground thrash band called Sadus. He was on a couple of Death albums. He was in Control Denied. And I got to watch him play a show in the Milwaukee Metal Fest. And this guy was playing a 6-string fretless bass and keyboard at the same time. The dude is mega talented. Sorry, I can't talk. Steve DiGiorgio, man, he is awesome, you know, when it comes to bass players. So those are the ones that come to mind. And my wife, she plays bass. She's awesome. So, drummer. Now, when it comes to the drummer world, the only commercial drummer that I really give props to is Mike Portnoy. And again, it's you know, Neil Peart is awesome. Neil Peart was doing stuff that extreme bands wish they could do now. He was doing that back in the 70s. Mike Portnoy is one of those kind of drummers. Now, the other 3 drummers I'm gonna list are from the underground. First one is John Longstreth. He is one of the fastest, awesome technical drummers that I've had the pleasure of hanging out with. And if you don't know who he is, he was in a band called Origin, still is, and he does a lot of tours, and basically he's a good hired gun for a lot of death metal underground bands. Flo Meunier, or Meunier, I don't know how to say his name. He's from the band Cryptopsy. He's one of these death metal drummers that knows how to do different time signatures, and just he is beyond fast, but he also has technicality too. Richard Christie. Now, Richard Christie was in Death. He was in Iced Earth. He has his own project called Charred Walls of the Damned. And if you don't know, he's also a member of the Howard Stern Show. Richard cut a lot of his teeth in Springfield, Missouri. I'm friends with him. I got to hang out with him a couple of years ago. You know, we had a mutual friend of ours passed away, and I got to hang out with him. That was the last time I hung out with him. But Richard Christie, I watched him go from a pretty good drummer, punk kid, to the technical badass he is now. A lot of people don't know who he is unless you watch the Richard Christie show. Unless you listen to the Howard Stern Show. Now, what's funny is Richard has met famous people, like, he's jammed with guys from Metallica. You know, he's jammed with a lot of famous people. There's a video of him and Mike Portnoy playing some King Diamond, you know, together. And he definitely gets props from, like, well-known drummers that appear on the Howard Stern Show. Vocalists. This one is a long list, but of course, Bruce Dickinson, of course. Rob Halford. Some unknown ones, okay? Warrell Dane. He was in Sanctuary and Nevermore. And I'm going to write down another guitar player I just thought of. I haven't gotten to that list yet, but I completely forgot this guy. Anyways, Warrell Dane is one of the most broad range vocalists in the heavy metal scene. His first band was Sanctuary, which Dave Mustaine from Megadeth produced their first album, and then he was in Nevermore, and he just recently passed away right before Christmas, and he's one of the top vocalists in the heavy metal scene. Chuck Billy of Testament. That guy can compete with any death metal band, but he can also sing melodically. And I've met him and got to watch Testament. He's the singer of Testament. I got to watch them play at a local club in Springfield, and he is a very large, very dominant fellow, and he's got lungs from hell. Chuck Schuldiner, or Schuldiner, I think that's how you say his name, from Death. He progressed from a lower death metal vocals to more of the high raspier stuff towards the end of his career. Unfortunately, he also has passed away, but he could growl and be completely clear. You can understand everything he was saying. John Tardy in the death metal world, he's the singer of Obituary. If you were to look up the term death metal vocalist in the dictionary, John Tardy would be the guy that you would go, okay, that's what that is. If people go, hey, what is death metal exactly? You play him Obituary, you play him John Tardy's vocals. Now, a vocalist that never gets any recognition, but can keep up with the Rob Halfords and the Bruce Dickinson, and that is Michael Sweet of Stryper. Yes. This day and age, 25 years later, his pipes are as good, if not better, than they were 25 years ago. That's it. Now, guitarist. I'm a guitar player, so this one I had to really kind of like make sure I cover all my bases. And it's really hard because a lot of guitar players that influence me aren't really shredding lead players, okay? Guys from like Kirk Winstein of Crowbar, James Hetfield. James Hetfield he's a big influence on me because of some of the riffs he plays and sings at the same time. You know, James Hetfield has, you know, he's a huge influence as being a vocalist, guitarist myself. I think I've acquired a lot of his mannerisms. Chuck Schuldiner, again, from Death. Listen to his playing. He is self-taught, and you listen to his leads, and you wouldn't know it. You know, he is amazing. Okay. Now, Michael Sweet of Stryper. Again, there's that Michael Sweet again. He is severely underrated, and he is. I got to see Stryper as my first heavy metal concert, and he is amazing. You know, he does the majority of the leads in Stryper, and he does it while singing those awesome vocals he does. There's two local guys that I'm going to mention from Springfield, Missouri. Aaron Roten, and he's got a band called Super String Theory. If you've watched any of my music videos, the instrumental stuff, his band is in a couple of those videos. Paige Townsley from Vor. They're a death metal band out of Northwest Arkansas, and Paige Townsley is amazing. He's got the rhythm chops and the lead chops. And then one of my favorite guitar teams is Michael Gilbert and Edward Carlson of early Flotsam and Jetsam. If you haven't heard Flotsam and Jetsam, go back to the album No Place for Disgrace, the original one back in 1986, and you will hear the amazing guitar duo that they were. And last but not least, Jeff Loomis of Nevermore and currently an Arch Enemy. If you haven't heard Jeff Loomis, you need to, because he is amazing. And John Pertucci, he gets another of Dream Theater. He gets another. It's one of those I keep adding. So I just got to end it right there. I will mention one more. A local guy named Bill Bruce, who's now doing work for a national band down in Nashville. He's a hired gun. He's really good. So that's the groups. It's not your typical lists. I'm influenced by a lot of underground, unheard stuff, and I do appreciate the classics and everybody that, like Steve mentioned, and everybody that Smokes A Rollin mentioned. I like all those guys too, but this is the cream of the crop for me. Okay. Now, the last thing is one thing no one knows about you musically. My very first gig, I was 7 years old, and my dad played in a country western band, just a local deal. And he had me come in and sing On the Road Again by Willie Nelson. That was my first vocal debut. And then for kicks, he made a washtub bass. So imagine this goofy 7-year-old kid in a bar with all these country western types, and I'm sitting there plucking a washtub bass. So, and then one of the highlights of Apnea's career was opening up for Lamb of God, Metal Church, 3 Inches of Blood, Immolation. I mean, the list goes on of the bands that we opened up for. MOD. But one of the other highlights is I got to hang out and watch Saturday morning cartoons. I got to hang out with the guys from Death there at the Milwaukee Metal Fest. So, but anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. And I think I'm supposed to tag 3 people, but I don't know who to tag, because Steve Berger's already been tagged, and maybe tag yourselves, if you want to put your influences in the comment section. Russ, Smokes A Rollin, I'm sorry this took too long. I just wanted to do it right, and I'll be honest, I slacked off a little bit, and Steve Berger did his video tonight, so I thought, you know what, I better do mine. So, but anyways, Russ, I hope you get to feeling better. I hope everything's, is going to go well. And thanks for tagging me into this. And now you guys know a little bit more about my musical influences. And guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm influenced by many, many bands, many albums. There are days when I'm into like more death metal. There are days when I'm into more doom, like My Dying Bride or Crowbar. And then there are other times when I go back to the classics. It's all Maiden, Judas Priest, and stuff like that. So thanks for watching, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it. If not, well, who cares? I did it for me, and I did it for Russ. So you guys take it easy.